Hey all, welcome back to my channel. I just realized that in my first video, I never gave an official introduction into who I am and also talking about the topics that will be covered on this channel. So for starters, I am a proud Jamaican. I am also a public health educator and research scientist. This channel, I Speak Health, will be your hub for all issues public health that centers the Black body. Today on the channel, I'll be discussing the issue of fibroids. I know we've all heard about fibroids and we know a little basics on what fibroids is because it is everywhere. But did you know that Black women suffer more than any other ethnicity from fibroids? So without further ado, let's get right into it. Fibroids connect almost every Black woman you interact with. It's either you know someone that has fibroid or you're actually talking to someone with it or they know of someone with fibroids. Fibroids are often benign, but if left untreated can lead to difficult health consequences for a woman. So here are some background information on fibroids and some typical symptoms people with fibroids experience. Fibroids are tumors that develop in the uterus and are made of smooth muscle cells and fibrous connective tissue. They're almost always non-cancerous. However, on rare occasions, some do become cancerous. Some are as small as a pea grain, but some can grow to the size of a watermelon. Think about that. The cause is unknown, but some research suggests that there may be a genetic component that causes women to develop fibroids. Some common symptoms of uterine fibroids are prolonged and heavy periods, bleeding between periods, frequent urination, lower back pain, pain during intercourse, or difficulty getting pregnant. So now that we've gotten over the background information on fibroids and also exploring some of the common symptoms, let's get into the real story that I feel gets omitted from this fibroid discussion. Fibroids affect approximately 35 to 77% of women of reproductive age, even though I believe that number could be higher. But check this out. 1 in 4 women, Black women, between the ages of 18 and 30 have fibroids, compared to 6% of white women in the same age range. By age 35, that number increases to a whopping 60% for Black women. You heard that correctly, 60%. You would think that the numbers would be comparable, but they're not. And I'm sure by now you're asking yourself, why is this? Researchers have found some elements that they think might be drivers of this disparity, but there isn't any direct link between any of these factors and uterine fibroids that explains why Black women are suffering more from fibroids. Some research has suggested low vitamin D, obesity, lack of exercise, lack of quality health care, hair straighteners, or even childhood sexual abuse. I am a bit skeptical here because none of this matters for Black women who do not fit into any of these categories. Come a little closer to the screen. Turn up your volume just a bit. The Black body is not flawed. So something has to be driving the high rates of fibroids in our community. I'm sure your interest has peaked by now because I clearly want to get to the bottom of this. So let's dive in. There is a concept called weathering, which was coined by researcher Arlene Geronimo. In it, she noted that Black people experience early health deterioration as a consequence of the cumulative impact of repeated experience with social or economic adversity and political marginalization. She noted that persistent, high effort coping with acute and chronic stressors can have a profound effect on health. I'm sure we can all relate that at times it feels like we're constantly outing fires. It's nonstop. The other concept is called allostatic load, which is defined as the cumulative effect of experiences in daily life that involve ordinary events as well as major challenges and the physiological consequences of health damaging behaviors. These can include poor sleep, circadian disruption, lack of exercise, smoking, alcohol consumption, and an unhealthy diet. When these environmental challenges exceed the individual's ability to cope, then allostatic load ensues. So let's break that down into simpler terms for you in the audience, because I'm sure you're probably a bit lost and we don't want anyone to leave this space without understanding what weathering and allostatic load are. So, repeated and constant exposures to daily life stressors and a lack of adaptation to those stressors causes an overload in the body, which leads to weathering, which is basically early health deterioration, and that causes accelerated aging of the body. Earlier in my commentary, I mentioned where diet was one of the factors that researchers found that could be causing the high rates of fibroids in the Black community. So let's talk about diet for a minute, but we are not going to look at it from an individual health behavior lens, but from a systemic perspective to show how the system is a driver of unhealthy diet for fibroid management. Barriers to food security and access to healthy foods are caused and perpetuated by the system. Race and discrimination is almost always at the root of most societal issues in America. On the screen here, I'll be showing you real life zoning of two neighboring cities in New York to show how access to food and healthcare are segregated. As you can see, there are plenty of fresh produce available to the residents. In a few distance, you will see that there is also a Whole Foods available, and there are other little places where individuals can go to get fresh produce. So that is all good. And we're going to contrast that to the other neighborhood where you'll predominantly find fast food restaurants and bodegas, and an absence of fresh farm to table produce. So I'm here in Union Square in Manhattan, and they have a farmer's market. I believe it's almost every day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You can see no pesticides. Okay, so this is a crown fried chicken and pizza base. Hair braiding. Not really a lot of like healthy food options around. So this is what you would consider or call a food desert. Doesn't have a lot of healthy options. I saw one market up at the beginning of the block, so I'll just show you what the options are for those. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation conducted a research that was titled Bridging the Gap, and they found that community zoning policies were more likely to allow fast food restaurants and retail stores to be established more than supermarkets and grocery stores. Color me shocked. Lower income communities were less likely to be granted permits for non-store food outlets like farmers markets or community gardens than higher income communities. This research is not novel to me, but it does demonstrate that the presence of chronic and non-communicable diseases are not solely an individual's fault, but are a microcosm of the structures in place that acts as catalysts for these types of health issues to persist in the Black community. Another alarming bit of research that I pounced upon showed that Black women will wait more than 5 years before seeking treatment for fibroids for the fear of being offered more invasive treatments. This can be looked at in one of two ways. Could it be that their concerns were previously dismissed by their providers as having just normal cramps? Or could it be that other options were not presented to them? After all, Black women were twice more likely to undergo a hysterectomy than white women. Treatment options are not equally offered. Again, we can see that health disparities are not just fueled by individual health behaviors, but are perpetuated by institutional practices. Simply put, it's by design. So I want to hear from you. If you currently have fibroids or know of someone who does, was it hard to navigate the healthcare system? And if so, were you presented with other options other than a hysterectomy? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new on fibroids and just knowing that this issue is not an individual battle. There are many factors that come into play when dealing with fibroids. If you're currently suffering, just know that there is support and there is a community for you. This community right here on I Speak Health, it's open, it is a safe space. So if you ever want to reach out, you can contact me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel because we'll be presenting you with more informational and educational videos like this one. Thank you.